Good afternoon again to the people of the territory, testifiers, and my colleagues. I quickly want to ask to Commissioner Evangelista, there's a section in the piece of legislation that speaks to the various decimals at different times emulating from businesses. How is it a business can potentially challenge if a decimal, that is, if you do a test? Is it going to be a situation where they too can purchase sound devices or either pull up an app? Because if they're saying, because I'm looking at it from the human side. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not going to say every single person that's going to go to an establishment is always going to do. I look at things from the perspective of sometimes there are malicious people and people in their emotions. I don't want to be a situation where someone is constantly going after one business and causing a situation. How do they challenge or get an opportunity to challenge if they're not saying, well, we didn't really break the law?
Sure, great question, Senator. So similar to a speeding ticket, when you have someone on the highway and an interstate, those meters have to be calibrated at a timely basis. So that calibration will determine whether or not that meter is in sync, and then the establishment is not prohibited from also monitoring themselves. So I'm sure their counsel would then provide that. But the machine itself that Commissioner Martinez is speaking about, the gadget, will have to be calibrated at certain regular intervals to ensure that it's reading correctly, similar to the way we ensure that scales, when you purchase something, are calibrated on an annual basis. So,
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I also have another quick question in regards to the soundproofing of establishments that emulate loud music or sounds. One of the things I learned years ago when I was assisting someone, and this is from early 2000s, when I was assisting or mid or after, I was assisting someone with getting their business license prepared, and I was told years ago that their establishment would have had to be soundproof. So I'm a little bit confused with the dialogue, and I just need specific clarity. It's when someone comes to you as the commissioner of your agency to get a license for one of these businesses that have to be soundproof as a matter of law, do you guys inspect the business prior to, or make sure that the soundproofing has already occurred before the license is issued because it's a requirement? How do you do that? Because if my colleague over in St. Croix is saying we have to do this because we're not giving them enough time, but the law already says it has to be done prior to, explain to me how do we correlate this so there's no confusion?
Sure. So I can only speak of what has occurred since I have taken office. So any new business that is applying for a tavern keeper liquor license, we ensure that they are A, soundproofed immediately, or if for whatever reason it appears that they are during the inspection and we later find out that they're not, we actually cause them to do it. For those who are still in violation, which there are many because, as you know, the law passed quite some time ago, this current measure that's being proposed will actually assist them, because perhaps with the decibel level reading, they may not have to invest as much into soundproofing the entire facility. So it was a happy medium, in terms of trying to assess on how can we assist the businesses, because we want them to be productive and lucrative, but at the same time ensuring a quality of life for those persons who live next door. Now, what I can share with you that I've learned since I've taken this helm is that in addition to soundproofing, there's now technology where speakers can be adjusted so that the bass, which is really one of the most death-defying noises that I've been experiencing from neighbors who have come to us for show cause hearings, which are going to commence in the very near future. It shakes the ground, it shakes the bed, it shakes the glass in the house. It's death-defying. So with any entrepreneurs, if you want to get into sound testing, there's a ability for you to actually adjust speakers so they can be large, they can look large, they can make the noise, but it stays within the confines of the building and it does not disrupt persons immediately surrounding the area.
Thank you so much for that information. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
You're welcome. Thank you for the line of questioning. Recognized.
Thank you. First of all, good afternoon once again. again to my colleagues, the people of the territory, and the testifiers. I am here to bring forth Bill number 34-0206, and that particular piece measure speaks to reciprocal authorization for guns being brought into the territory. Based on our current law, we have, and it's an act amending Title 23, Chapter 5, Section 460. Section 460 consists of two specific paragraphs. The first paragraph speaks to private individuals being able to bring their guns into the territory once they have same or similar type licenses in their specific state or territory they exist in. After attending a meeting early last year, and a bill was attempting to be brought forward to extend the reciprocal access to individuals to bring guns into this territory, that bill was basically rejected by this institution. And in listening to the testimony, it was also brought to our attention that currently in our books, that there is a piece of legislation that exists that allows for this. I was very much concerned on the Senate floor that day, as well as I went to my office and I pulled up the piece of legislation. And it basically allows for individuals to just bring guns in here. As an individual that has had to deal with a family member that has died through gun violence, as well as knowing so many people in this territory, we have a very hard time already dealing with gun violence here. I don't think that in our society, specifically this territory, we need to have any legislation on the books that will allow for people. I don't know how you live in your state. I don't know what you had to go through in order to get your license. But if you choose to come on vacation here, you could come with your gun. I do not subscribe to these things when it comes to the protection and the well-being of not only the locals, but the tourists alike. I have spoken to many individuals, agencies, as well as the commissioner, AG's office, and in speaking to them, they did make a recommendation in regards to the timeline that we do give for this law to be implemented. So we do have an amendment that will give it to be implemented within 90 days once it's passed. But we have to get to a point where we're protecting home first. And I don't have a problem with whatever you do in your state, but here in the Virgin Islands, when you attempt to go and get a gun license, you have to go through a very strenuous process. You have to get evaluated by a psychologist. You have to get reference letters. You have to take classes and several things that needs to be done in order for you as a law-abiding citizen to carry a handgun. At the end of the day, I would rather these processes go through. Now, I understand sometimes people are a little frustrated as to how long the process might take, and I hope through this new commissioner that might be a much smoother process. But at the end of the day, we should not have open borders when it comes to guns in our territory. So I'm asking my colleagues for their support with this piece of legislation. As I said, this law only removes the paragraph that speaks to private citizens being able to bring in their guns. The second paragraph within the law speaks to law enforcement. We have not touched that paragraph, so law enforcement can move back and forth with their guns because they know that's their job. So we did not interfere with that. So I want to hopefully request that my colleagues who have followed this piece of legislation, and at the appropriate time, we will bring the amendment to add the additional 90-day grace period so that everyone would be involved, whether you are a tourist traveling, time for the agencies to let the public know that this is something that will no longer be allowed here in the territory. Now, moving on to my second piece of legislation, which is Bill 34-0225. This piece of legislation has to do with our attempts to increase the penalties when it comes to individuals that are mandated by law to report when there is any crimes committed against a child. When it comes to sexual abuse, when it comes to child abuse, when it comes to child neglect. We have had some very unfortunate situations here in our territory where it seems we are more concerned about protecting the adults than protecting the very children that we are charged with to make sure that they're okay. Unfortunately, you know, the Aaron Benjamins of the world here in this territory, the stories that we hear from different agencies, the stories that we hear coming through our education department, unfortunately, I think as a community, we have become a little bit too complacent, and we have had this mentality of sweeping things under the rug. You know, we have a nonprofit organization here in the territory that is about to close down, and their entire purpose here in the territory was to deal with child advocacy. They're shutting down because no reports for abuse and sexual assaults have been reported to them. Now, we know these things are happening, but how do we get to a point as a people we don't have any fear of making sure that our children are taken care of, that they're protected at all costs? You know, I could go back to a situation for myself. When I was in 10th grade, I was in the gym, in the locker room, and we were changing. I got into a verbal confrontation with a bully, and this young lady at the time went in her backpack and pulled out a hunting knife. And she pulled it on me. I was in 10th grade. And I told her, don't even try it, because I don't care what you do, not today. I proceeded to leave that locker room and walk all the way down to the principal's office and demanded that they call 911. Do you know what happened that day? They said no. From that situation as a child, I saw adults not protecting me. No one picked up the phone to call the police because they were more concerned about, oh, we don't want the police up here at Charlotte Amalie High School. We don't want a situation of, oh, it's going to turn into some big thing. We got to call her parents. We have to do. They were more concerned about the potential effect that it would have had on this child and her family than it was the individual that just walked into our office as a child telling you this young lady pulled a knife on me. So that didn't deter me. But what it instilled in me, that if I ever had an opportunity to do what I needed to do to protect the children of this territory, you rest assured, Alma, Alicia, Francis, DeFreitas, Heyliger will be doing it. And in our situations that we see here on a day-to-day basis, many times we are protecting the adults more than the victims, especially these children. So this piece of legislation not only increases the fines, but it also bumps up when you are an adult in a position and you are charged that if you see a child being neglected, if you see a child being abused, if somebody comes and reports it and you decide on your own, I'm not getting involved, I'm not going to report it, I'm not going to do what I have to do to guarantee that the next 3 children are not going to be abused or sexually assaulted, you now could become a felon. You now have to have an increase when it comes to your charges being brought to you and potentially go and spend 2 years in prison, because that's the minimum I bumped it up to. We have to take away people from feeling that they have no fear from protecting our children. It must be done. So I would like to ask my colleagues to really look at this piece of legislation as we listen to the testifiers and support and protect the children of this territory. I have a short video I would like to play. Media, if you could play it for me. And after that, I would like to thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. Media?
Media, you go ahead.
Mr. Jesus, I just had to write to you. Something really scared me when I saw it on the news. A story about a little girl beaten black and blue. Jesus, thought I'd take this right to you.
wanted to play that because I wanted you to understand what we're attempting to do here today to protect the children of this territory. I just want to make note that during our conversation with the AG and several other individuals, they did bring to note that we also have an amendment when it comes to bill number 34-0225. And we just needed to clean up and make sure that this piece of legislation, we added in some words specifically so it could be identified when it comes to issues against children. We did not want to leave it open-ended. So we are amending to make sure it says specifically against children, as well as making sure the bill is amended to state that this is only for individuals that are mandated by law to do this. So hopefully the amendment will clear up any concerns that individuals had, because this subsection already has a listing of those that have to do it. But we want to make sure our amendment cleans that up to guarantee that they understand it is not an option, it is a requirement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Francis Heyliger.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again. I am like Ms. Gonzalez. I don't know what to do with myself. I literally came here to fight everybody. 'Cause I was determined these were going to pass, but apparently all my colleagues and everybody's in support. So I wanted to just make sure to put on the record, but also to ask a couple of questions of the testifiers. But for the record, yes, we do have 2 sets of amendments for each one of these bills. Hopefully they were circulated in the District of St. Croix as well. One of these pieces of amendments do give that grace period for 90 days so that individuals could have an opportunity within the agencies to educate the public, update their websites, and do whatever they have to do in order to let the general public know what's coming. And the other piece does have to do with making sure that it speaks to those that are mandated by law under this subsection, that it's not open to just anybody being potentially prosecuted for it, but for those in this subsection. So at the appropriate time, I will bring these 2 amendments. I want to ask Ms. Gonzalez from Victims United, what I want to know is, how do you think that the changing of the law, any of these laws, both of these, will be effective or affect the people in our territory?
Well, usually our laws are intended to prove things. This particular law, though, when I looked at what is in the records national for the United States Virgin Islands and the child abuse, there's a report the CAPTA, which outlines in a section defining child abuse and neglect in the state law. It defines the conduct and a lot of the things that we mentioned today. But when I look down at the Virgin Islands and our definition of abuse, it also includes acts of circumstances that threaten the child with harm or create substantial risk of harm to the child's health and welfare. One of the things that was mentioned here as the Virgin Islands statistics came to light was that, along with the definitions, regulations, was that parents do not educate their children. When we looked at this, we thought about the fact that our parents also need education. Our community needs education. As mentioned earlier, I think it was by the Assistant Attorney General, education is necessary.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
And education is also necessary for the responders. because we're asking them, we're requiring of them reporting, and they also need to know exactly who these reports should be made to, and also how exactly to approach
Okay.
helping the victims.
Well, thank you so
helping
much.
the family,
Thank you
and
so
so
much,
forth.
Ms. Gonzalez. But I'm going to quickly wrap up. What I would like to say is that when it comes to reciprocity, according to what has been shared here today, even from the highest ranking member within our police department, that we don't need it in our territory. Whatever we have to do in order to eliminate or protect the people of this territory, we're going to make sure it happens. As it comes to the second piece of legislation in protecting the very most vulnerable amongst us, this legislation, it is important to me. It should be important to you, because at the end of the day, we have to be the voices of our children of this territory. We have to be the ones to stand up for them. We have to be the ones to fight for them. We have to put the fear of God in people that do not understand when it is their responsibility and duty to protect these children. They have to do it. It is not an option. And if you don't do it, we will happily put you behind bars. Period. So I would like to thank my colleagues for their support, and at the appropriate time, I will be bringing my amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your amendment.
Thank you. Well, no, you got to call up a bill so I could go ahead.
Yeah, you're going to do it, yeah.
Well, first I would like to bring a amendment number 34-54.
Wait, excuse me, hold 1 second. I see Senator Jane with a mic in his hand. You had a question. We kept not hearing you over here. Sorry if you did. Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your amendment.
I would like to offer amendment number 34-541, amendment to bill number 34-0206, offered by Senator Alma Francis Heyliger. Bill number 34-0206 is amended by inserting a new section that reads as follows. Section 2, the provision of this act becomes effective 90 days after enactment. I so move.
The amendment was properly moved by Senator Francis Heyliger and seconded by Senator Francis and Senator Payne. Amendment, Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your amendment.
I would like to offer amendment number 34-539, amendment to bill number 34-0225, offered by Senator Alma Francis Heyliger. Bill number 34-34-0225, section 1, page 1, is amended in the following instances. A, on line 5, insert required by this subchapter to report a case of alleged child abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect against a child after institution, and B, on line 6, insert against a child after committed. I so move.
Amendment was properly moved by Senator Francis Heyliger and seconded by Senator Payne and Senator Francis. Hearing no objections, so ordered.
Chair, I would like to withdraw my amendment, 34-539.
Good. Seconded by the amendment was withdrawn because I was under the impression it was two amendments to the one bill, but it was individual amendment for each bill. We have to vote on the one bill first, and then we add the amendment to the second bill. So it was withdrawn by Senator Francis Heyliger and seconded by Senator Francis. Motion. Would that have to go to a vote?
Yes.
Yeah, that would have to go to a vote.
Motion.
Okay. Motion.
Motion.
Senator Heyliger, you recognize.
I move that bill number 34-0206 An act amending Title 23, Chapter 5, Section 460 of the Virgin Islands Code, repealing reciprocal recognition of firearms licenses and persons that own firearms outside of the Virgin Islands, be favorably, as amended, shall be favorably voted on by this committee and moved to the Committee of Jurisdiction, Committee on Rules and Judiciary. I so move.
Bill number 34-0206 as amended was properly moved by Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, seconded by Senator Noble Francis Jr. and Senator Stephen Payne Sr. Roll call.
Senator Dwayne M. DeGraff.
Yes.
Senator DeGraff, yay. Senator Novell E. Francis Jr. Senator Francis Jr., yay. Senator Alma Francis Heyliger.
Yes.
Senator Francis Heyliger, yay. Senator Kenneth L. Gittens. Senator Gittens, absent. Senator Javan E. James Sr. Senator.
Yes. Okay. Good. He said yes.
Senator James Sr., yay. Senator Franklin D. Johnson.
Yay.
Senator Johnson, yay. Senator Stephen D. Payne Sr.
Yes.
Senator Payne Sr., yay. Mr. Chair, we have 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Bill number 34-0206 as amended. An act amending Title 23, Chapter 5, Section 460 of the Virgin Islands Code, repealing reciprocal recognition of firearm licenses for persons that own firearms outside of the Virgin Islands, has been favorably voted on in this committee and will be forwarded to the Committee of Rules and Judiciary for further consideration.
Amen.
Please recognize Senator Heyliger for her amendment.
I would like to offer Amendment 34-539, amendment to Bill number 34-0225, offered by Senator Alma Francis Heyliger. Bill number 34-0225, Section 1, Page 1, is amended in the following instances. A, on line 5, insert required by this subchapter to report a case of child abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect against a child after institution. And B, on line 6, insert against a child after committed. I so move.
Amendment was properly moved by Senator Francis Heyliger and seconded by Senator Noble Francis Jr. and Senator Stephen D. Payne Sr. Hearing no objections, so ordered.
Motion.
Motion, Senator Heyliger, you're recognized for your motion.
I move that Bill number 34-0225, an act amending Title 5, Virgin Islands Code, Subtitle 2, Chapter 201, Section 2539, to increase the penalties for failure to report certain crimes, be voted favorably by this committee as amended and voted favorably by this committee and forwarded to the Committee of Jurisdiction, Committee on Rules and the Judiciary. I so move.
Bill number 34-0225 has been properly moved, seconded by Senator Francis Jr. and Senator Stephen Payne Sr. Roll call.
Senator Dwayne M. DeGraff.
Yes.
Senator DeGraff, yay. Senator Novell E. Francis Jr. Senator Francis Jr., yay. Senator Alma Francis Heyliger.
Yes.
Senator Francis Heyliger, yay. Senator Kenneth L. Gittens. Senator Gittens, absent. Senator Javan E. James Sr.
Yes.
Senator James Sr., yay. Senator Franklin D. Johnson.
Yay.
Senator Johnson, yay. Senator Stephen D. Payne Sr. Yes. Senator Payne Sr., yea. Mr. Chair, we have 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Bill number 34-0225, an act amending Title 5, Virgin Islands Code, Subtitle 2, Chapter 201, Section 2539, to increase the penalties for failure to report certain crimes, has been favorably moved in this committee and will be forwarded to the Committee of Rules and Judiciary for further consideration.
You're recognized for your point of information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to, first of all, say thank you to the testifiers and everyone that came. I do appreciate the thought process of the AG's office. The one amendment did remove the overall from everyone. So that amendment we just passed completely cleared up that concern, so we won't have to do it again in the Rules and the Judiciary. And their opinion as it relates to 0 to 5, that is something that you can share your opinion on. But for me, and clearly my colleagues that did read this piece of legislation, when it comes to the protection of our children, I don't want to have any situation where people are not reporting, because if you are in fear of losing your license, getting fired, going to jail, all you have to do is stop for a moment and report it. That is the only thing that is barring you from even potentially going to jail. And that is to protect a child. And if you don't have any fear of doing that, so you think you could just ignore it, well, guess what? This piece of legislation could potentially put you behind bars for 2 years. Do your job, protect the children of this territory, and you have no fear of the laws of this land. Thank you so much.